traders, I am Adam. Let us kick off having a look at the global markets. How are the US markets doing versus the rest of the world? So it is something that is different, something is changing, and I think let's go and see and find out what that is. Let's start off here with the Dow. All right, so first of all, if we have a look at it from a monthly perspective, you can see that it does continually close higher. All right, so it is closing higher very slowly but surely. So if you're an investor, you're benefiting from it. When you go down to the weekly, it gets a little bit more choppy. You can see that the week before last, we had a very nice bullish candle, broke and close above 50,000, but now it is back down below 50,000. The overall flow of price and the trend is still intact, but it is becoming increasingly choppy. If we go down to the daily, this is where it starts to show some concern. We can see it keeps coming back down to that 50 period, and it's almost approaching that $49,000 level. It's going to potentially come back and test it. This is really where we need to keep an eye on it. Essentially what's happening here is that it is slowing down. It's starting to come back down to these lower levels. And one of two things is going to happen. We're likely going to find that it consolidates before breaking higher, or it consolidates before breaking lower. So let's move on to the S&P 500 and let's have a look at that. Let's go back up to the monthly here, and you can see that the S&P is still failing at this point, is really struggling to close above that 6,900 level. The overall trend is looking really good. In fact, what it's doing is a consolidation. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is why it's important to check your higher timeframes, because we are consolidating. And what could legitimately happen is that over a couple of months, we take a bit of a breather and then it takes off and continues higher. That is a very real possibility. But at the same time, let's have a look at it from a weekly perspective. And so here you can see essentially that it is stuck in a range. It's lost its uptrend. It's now going sideways, and it keeps wanting to come down and test support around about that 6,750 level, and it can't get above the 7,000 level. In fact, it's actually struggling to get above 6,970. But at the same time, it's going sideways now. As I said, from a monthly perspective, this could just very well turn into a consolidation before it ultimately breaks higher. That's why this level of support is very important to monitor. So this week, I'm going to be looking to see how that 6,750 levels and 6,700 level holds up. Ultimately, if we do close below this, especially on the weekly, and we start to come back down towards that 6,500 and 6,550 level, then we could start seeing ourselves possibly creeping below it. It's very similar to what's happened in the past, but until that happens, it's more likely that the market is just taking a bit of a breather. If we move across and have a look at the Nasdaq, let's go up to the monthly there as well. Here you can see a very nice consolidation, 4 or 5 months sideways, connecting now with the moving averages, which means that it's very possible, not necessarily likely, but possible within the next 1 or 2 months, we could see this attempt to break higher. That's why it's important, again, to go to that weekly and have a look at this. This 24,000 level is kind of critical at this time. We need to see if we're going to break. Now, if at some point the weekly does break below this level and again close below that weekly, if we get a nice close below that, then we're likely to have a deeper correction. But actually, that is plan B. Plan A, which is more likely historically, is that we will take a bit of a breather and then continue to the upside. Both are possibilities. The one is just slightly more likely than the other, but I'm watching out for both. And so we'll just be testing these 24,700 level, 24,800, all the way down to 24,000 this week for support. You can see it wants to continue closing lower. So my expectation for now is that it will continue to move a little bit lower. And we're still stuck within a range. So when you look at the medium term or the longer term picture, we haven't really changed that much. We're still just going sideways. So I think that it's very premature to assume what the markets are going to do until we see them actually give us a clue, until we see a real break below 24,000 or above 26,000. Both are actually possibilities. It's a little bit like Schrödinger's market, isn't it? All right, let's move on and have a look at the Russell 2000. So the Russell 2000 has been going sideways for several weeks now, but overall the trend is still stronger. Produced a nice little bullish candle here. Let's go and mark that. Last week it did break above the high, but it couldn't get beyond that 2,700 level. And again, if we go down to that daily, it's looking increasingly choppy, but the overall trend is still strong. And so it's important, because if the small cap companies continue to push higher, what that actually means is that the US markets aren't all necessarily taking strain, just most likely the large cap ones. Okay. Now let's move away from the US. Let's have a look at the FTSE. We go to the weekly here. You can see we did continue to close higher. The overall trend still looking good. I'd love to see a bit of a retracement here, but we've had a consolidation and a breakout. So strength-wise, this still looks good. And actually, Usman, if you are watching this and if you're listening, I haven't forgotten. I will try and produce your FTSE 100 and the UK 100 a deeper analysis, a deep dive on that for you this week or next week at the latest, but I will try and do it this week. Okay, next up. So we can see here that we had a very nice nice pullback, nice bullish candle we spoke about last week. We did actually push high. We've come back. We've produced a little bit of a small bullish candle here. The only thing is we're close to where the highs of all these candles are, but overall this is still a bullish signal. So I'm just marking that here because if we break the high here, we can see that the market this week is going to attempt to push higher. And it's not that overextended, so I do think the momentum is very much in favor of it. And then we go to the DAX. Let's just go to the monthly here so you can get some perspective. Long consolidation, 7 months, then ultimately breaking out. Failed to kind of break out in its first attempt, but now continuing to close up and actually looking more likely that it's going to succeed in doing that, which means that that flow of price is now free to keep going. You can see the wicks top and bottom, which shows the volatility and the indecision, but you can see the week before last, nice bullish engulfing bar, then followed by this last week where we did actually break the high, but then close below it. So it's this kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of feeling there, but the push is still more to the upside than anything else. I'm not seeing massive signs of failure here. What I'm seeing is just a struggle to keep going higher at this point in time. Then let's move on to the Nikkei. Very nice strong breakout the week before last. In this latest week, we've got an indecision candle inside contained within that, which could turn out ultimately to be a pause before we break higher and keep going and do another leg up. So let's just keep an eye on that. What we have done is consolidated close to the moving averages, produced a small bullish inside candle on the daily. Some swing traders like to have a look at this. They may very well see this as a possible buying opportunity. I prefer a deeper correction, but that doesn't mean that this isn't ready to keep going, and there will be some resistance here at the 58,000, let's call it 500 level. So we'll keep an eye on that one. But yes, there is a possibility we could break higher or just move back up to the highs here on the Nikkei. The Seng, here, back in its range and a possible head and shoulders pattern here. So I'd watch this little low here, whether we see a correction back down towards the lows here. And so we'll keep an eye on that, not really going anyway. And then having a look here at the ASX. So the ASX, interesting to me. If you go to the monthly, this is very important to get some perspective on this. You can see that the overall trend is still looking very nice and bullish. We've pulled back, nice little bullish inside candle. We continue to push high. You can see these wicks occurring again. So it's not unique. These wicks on top show a lot of, they give you hints at the volatility below that, and all of that can be tied back to what's going on in the US with regards to the US policies and various other things that are causing the markets to move, but with increased volatility. Okay, so I'm not really, again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just seeing a struggle. I'm not seeing signs of failure. Failure looks different. Failure looks like large red candles. Here we're seeing them continually close higher. They just struggle and then come back and close and struggle, which means they are fighting to gain that ground, which is actually a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength, relatively speaking. So I wanted to show you that because the big picture gives us a sense of even how outside the US the markets are trying to go higher. When you get to the weekly, it's not really as obvious, and you can see here on the ASX it's struggling to get past that 9,000 level, or at least to close above it. But the flow of price, believe it or not, is still pushing higher. And the daily here, I find this interesting. We have a pure indecision candle here, open and close, same place, but still quite bullish. And yes, there's a level it has to get past, but this week could see it at least try to get back over the line. And if it does get back over the line and it closes on the other side of this line, you're going to start to see it just continues to push higher over the coming weeks. So I'm quite interested to see if it can succeed in doing that Monday or Tuesday this coming week. Okay, so let's take a break from the global indices, but how would I sum that up? How would I sum that up? I would say there's still appetite for buying, and there's still plenty of upside potential across a lot of the indices around the world, which implies that stocks are also by and large doing okay. And there's still, as I said, still appetite for it. And the interesting one for me will be the US, because I think a lot of people are expecting it to potentially just collapse. And that is a possibility. Of course, it's a possibility. But actually, we could also see that it consolidates and then just breaks out and just moves to the upside. So again, that might be if there is, maybe the markets are waiting on another Fed cut. So on another rate cut from the Fed, beg your pardon. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Okay, let's go have a look at crude oil. So crude oil, I mean, this is just ridiculous. It really isn't going anywhere. It's just bumping its head up against that $66, $67 level, and it can still go either way, and it's just not done anything. So again, it's just not been very useful actually as a commodity. If I had, for the last 10 years just been trading crude oil, and that was the only thing I focused on, I think I'd probably be homeless by now. There just isn't a lot on offer at this time. Okay, gold. Now, gold to me is very interesting. If we have a look at it here from a weekly perspective, we have managed to break above the high of last week, and we've closed higher. So it is a small candle. It's got relatively similar size wicks top and bottom, which means it's arguably a little bit of an indecision candle, but it did close higher. It's got a small bullish body, and it did break the high of last week, which is what we were looking for. I would have preferred for it to close above that level. That would have been a really strong finish, and that would imply we would see continuation. But it's also at the same time it's not negative. And what I do like, and what do we have here? We've got a nice little bullish inside candle that's showing up on the daily. So what does it mean? It means that the buyers keep coming in and pushing up higher. There is a battle here. 5,100. I would actually call it 5,100. And what I'm looking for this week is a break above that level. If it could succeed in breaking and closing above that level, then it may very well start to work its way back up to the highs, the recent highs. But it's got to get past this. I can tell you this, that the buyers are coming in underneath here, and they are accumulating, and they are going to take a run at it. The question is, will they succeed? Silver's not in the same place, though. Silver has got buyers creeping back in, but they're not as keen on silver as they are on gold. So gold is actually showing some potential here. Silver is still stuck underneath the 50 period here. It's still got a little inside bullish bar, but it's also forming a little bit of a wedge pattern here. Lower highs, higher lows. It's not in the same place. It's not in the same place. It may very well, if gold does succeed, then it may very well get pulled up with it, but it's not in the same place. I wouldn't get involved with silver yet. It's not showing enough indication of which way it's going to go. And gold, whereas gold is showing buyers are interested, and they're just going to see if they can get back up above that level. And then Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, to me, that's very interesting. There is a nice new level of 70,000. Let's call that. What is that? Strictly speaking, 70,800 is now a very strong level of resistance. But let's go up here. Okay, so something I just want to point out. It may be significant. It may not be. But price is now sitting at a previous historical level of resistance. It has found support here in the past. Let's adjust it. Let's bring it down. It has found support here in the past, and it is back at this level. Not only that, but historically, it has also found support on the 50 period in this area, the 50 period, the red 50 period over here, and it's encountering the 50 period over here. Let's just try something just nuts. Let's just measure the fib and just see where we are in relation to that. Oh, what do you know? We're coming down to the 618. Okay, so far, that's three different things. That's confluence that we're testing here. Does that mean for certain that Bitcoin is going to find support in this area? No, it doesn't. But it does mean that that is a possibility. Okay, so we're going to keep an eye on this. Let's just go ahead and just map out this area. We're just going to do this. And what I'm going to be looking for here, ladies and gentlemen, is a nice, strong green bar here to form. I'd be amazed if it was this month, if we managed to close as a green bar this month. Otherwise, I would expect it to be March and then April to see if we can break higher. So there is a possibility, and this isn't meant to be hopium. This is a technical, feasible idea that Bitcoin could find support where it is now and could attempt to go up from here. But we won't know that yet, really, until about April. So something to watch. On the other hand, should we come down here, close below that 50 period aggressively and break this low here, then it's not looking good. Okay, it's not looking good. So if we do get that and we close below this low and we close below that, we could see further downside. But where it is now, this is a really good place for it's let off a lot of buying pressure. It's a really good spot for it to find support. And then again, it could do something similar to this and just go sideways in this area for 6, 7, 8 months and then decide to move to the upside. So I just want to talk about this now. It probably or may well deserve its own standalone analysis, separate video. I'll consider doing that. If anyone is interested, put it in the comments and let me know, and then I'll do that and something so we can create a plan around this. But there we go. So I'm going to leave you with this. But right now, as I said, this is more of a sell. It's definitely not a buy. Absolutely not a buy at this point. If someone was an investor and they were looking to buy and hold, that's fine. But they'd be taking on that risk because it hasn't shown any sign of stabilizing in this area yet. It isn't there. So it wouldn't be based on any technical signals, that's for sure. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with that. Listen, as always, please trade responsibly, trade carefully, manage your risk. Yes, we live in some volatile times, but a lot of things, believe it or not, I want to say there's almost nothing new under the sun, and a lot of things have happened before. And so the markets, you might find a few years from now, looking back, the markets in many ways continue to do what they've always done. But there are some changes happening with regards to the relationship with the dollar. That's very interesting to me. And it's not necessarily going to be a fast change. It's a very slow, subtle hint, but I thought I would point it out, as well as looking at the markets, the global indices, and the non-US indices as well. It's very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with that. Have a great week. Thank you.